I don't think Madiba intentionally sold out. But I think part of the actions that he took led to a sell-out process being put. It was no coincidence that Comrade Chris Hani was assassinated.
Is it?
I remember a week before he was assassinated, I shared a stage with him in Bok, where he said the compromises on land, the compromises also on the so-called sunset clauses, the way in which civil servants from the white community are being guaranteed their jobs until they will retire, will make it impossible for us to be able to change this country, and because his popularity was unsurpassed. The likelihood that after Madiba retired, that Chris could have taken over as president was huge. And the white monopoly capitalists and imperialists said, never in our lives, because this man has not bought into the new liberal sell-out policy program that we have introduced into the African National Congress. He has to be removed. And that is the reason why Comrade Chris was assassinated. So now we are being totally sold out. The only time that there was a bit of a holding back, a bit of reversing from this new liberal economic policy program was during the time of President Jacob Zuma.
Okay.
But President Zuma also never really managed to totally change that policy program. He just managed to put the brakes onto it. But I understand that he was under a lot of pressure, and that there was a lot of reaction by the white monopoly capitalists against him when he came into power, because he was never part of their plan. They never wanted him to become president. Okay. Another thing that I believe very strongly, Titus, is that it was no coincidence that Comrade Chris Hani was assassinated.
Is it?
Comrade Chris was one of the most popular leaders in this country. And he was one of those who saw what was happening at Kudesa. And he was criticizing what was happening there in very clear terms. I remember a week before he was assassinated, I shared a stage with him in Boksburg, where he said, Kudesa is going to be the death of the liberation struggle. It's going to destroy the ANC. The compromises that are being made, the compromises on land, the compromises also on the so-called sunset clauses, the way in which civil servants from the white community are being guaranteed their jobs until they will retire, will make it impossible for us to be able to change this country and give to our people what we've promised them. And I'm convinced that there were not just a little right-wing clique, Clive Derby Lewis and Janusz Walusz. No. I'm convinced that there were also senior members of the African National Congress who were part of these sellouts, who had already become part of these people who were now in the service of white monopoly capitalism, who saw that Chris was a real danger to them because his popularity was unsurpassed. The likelihood that after Madiba retired, that Chris could have taken over as president was huge. And the white monopoly capitalists and imperialists said, never in our lives, because this man has not bought into the new liberal sell-out policy program that we have introduced, that we have infiltrated into the African National Congress. He has to be removed. And that is the reason why Comrade Chris was assassinated.
So
I believe, I must say, make this point, I believe that it is critical. And I hope that when the economic freedom fighters finally become the government of this country, that we will return to investigate properly what happened with the assassination of Chris Hani, and how and who were involved also from the side of the ANC. Those files mustn't be closed. It is part of our liberation history, and we owe it to the legacy of Comrade Chris to come out with the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Indeed, we should get to the bottom of this.
Now, absolutely.
You painted a picture of how the ANC has been infiltrated by white monopoly capital. Obviously, you pointed out the fact that they are enablers of white monopoly capital, also citing senior ANC leaders. Would you say Nelson Mandela was one of the people who enabled white monopoly capital?
It's a difficult question because Madiba came at the latter part of his life into a very complex environment where he needed to rely on good comrades to help him to take decisions. I don't think Madiba intentionally sold out. But I think part of the actions that he took, also on the basis of advice that was given to him, led to a sell-out process being put into progress. So in that sense, one has to acknowledge that part of the selling out happened during the first administration after the 1994, the 27th of April 1994 elections. And Madiba cannot be separated from that. But what I do believe is Madiba wanted to give us the first step towards our democracy. We had a responsibility to take it further. We had a responsibility to now implement radical economic transformation programs to give us that economic freedom in our lifetime. But we never did so. In fact, instead, we did nothing to change those dynamics that were first embedded in this new liberal constitution. One of the people I blame for that is Thabo Mbeki. Thabo Mbeki was the president of the ANC with the largest majority in parliament. He was the president who had a 2/3 majority. He did nothing, dololo, with that majority. It was wasted.
Yeah.
He could have changed the constitution because he had the 2/3 majority, the power to do so. He could have removed Section 25 of the Constitution. He could have returned the land to the people. He could have nationalized the South African Reserve Bank. He could have taken that clause in the Constitution that gives the Reserve Bank this very, very narrow definition that it is only supposed to concentrate on inflation targeting and it mustn't get involved in economic policy and economic growth programs. All of those things that our fellow fighter, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, in her report, the SAIEX report, and about ABSA and what happened with Bancorp, she wrote in that report also that the South African Reserve Bank's mandate should change. Now, Thabo Mbeki knew that it had to change if he really wanted to bring liberation and economic empowerment to the people.
But those recommendations,
he had the power.
The recommendations in the report never saw the light of day.
But remember, this was now later that she made that report, after Mbeki was already away. But remember that the main reason why Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane became such a target of the ANC and of the establishment and also of the Democratic Alliance was because of that report of hers. Because that went right to the core of what needs to change in our society if we want to bring fundamental change.
And so there you have it, guys. Our African leaders try to do their best, in their speeches and try to make speeches that actually to show, their efforts in trying to help manage the challenges which Africa is actually facing through and has been facing through since the colonial times. And so we here to really listen to these speeches and to share our thoughts in the comments. And so whatever it is you guys think about these speeches, please do share your thoughts in the comments.
Thank you for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please share and like and subscribe, because that's the way you support Kwazemi as a channel, an Afrocentric channel, where we try to understand deeper issues in African history and hopefully develop a collective intelligence on how we wish to build the Africa we want to see as people of Africa. See you in the next one.